What's up? It is episode 191 of Common Knowledge, the show where I take a look at 10, count them 10, common Magic the Gathering cards, and then I'll tell you if they are any good in the Pauper format or not. The Pauper format is the format where you can only use common cards, so that's why we don't look at uncommons. Make sense? Makes sense to me. Let's see what our first card of the day is. It's Dusk Shell Crawler. I like this card. I do. 1 and a green for a 0/3 insect. When this creature enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. That's not bad. I mean, a 2-mana 0/3 isn't the best stats, but it does block a good amount of things at that point. But it also, when it enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. Could be itself, so it could be a 2-mana 1/4, which is also a pretty decent stat line for 2 mana. Or you could put that +1/+1 counter on a different creature, and that's probably what you're going to do because of that other line of text. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. You probably want to give it to something that is a little beefier and going to use that trample better than Dust Shell Crawler. We are starting to see more +1/+1 counter synergies happen. We just had the Marvel set. We got that. There's like a cat. No, is it cat or is it like a Wakanda? Oh, it's something Wakanda. Am I just thinking cat because of Black Panther? Where is it? Maybe it's not Wakandan. Maybe it's just Wakanda. No, I don't know where it is then. But it's a 2-mana 2/1 that when you put +1/+1 counters on something, it gets +1/+1 counters as well. I think it already starts with trample, so it kind of doesn't really work with the Dust Shell Crawler. But we are starting to see more +1/+1 counter synergy stuff that works in Pauper. I think we're finding something that might be Selesnya colored that we can do stuff with. There's the white card that learns and also puts a +1/+1 counter on something. That can be pretty good. There are also some of those other, it's like Abzan kind of guys that can give all your creatures with +1/+1 counters on it flying. I think the one that gives lifelink is uncommon. I think so. But we are starting to see more synergies of those kinds of things. Dust Shell Crawler is cool. You can do some cool things with it. It's if somebody takes out your Dust Shell Crawler, then even though you have the +1/+1 counters, you're not getting the trample part anymore, and that can kind of ruin your day if somebody uses a cast down at an opportune time. Changes the combat math pretty significantly, but it's still solid. I think you are just getting a halfway decent creature on the board to begin with. And giving the other creatures trample is a bit gravy when you think about it. Really good gravy. I mean, the reason you play the card is for the gravy in this sense. But the card itself is just a solid little blocker. That's okay to just sit on the table. And even if you give this the +1/+1 counter, you've made it a 1/4, which makes it pretty darn solid. I don't mind this card in the least. I'm going to give it a 3.1. And say it's pretty good. Next up on our list is a Goblin Assailant, a 1 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Warrior. It's a Grizzly Bear in red. That's cool. It's not good, but it's cool. It's yeah. What more do you say? It's a Grizzly Bear. It's a 2. Red doesn't need a Grizzly Bear at all. I think we have enough other red creatures that are cheap enough. You know, you think about like Jackal Pup or something where we get more like Savannah Lions in red, and that feels a little bit better. Red wants to be a little bit more aggressive, and I just think a 2-mana 2/2 is a little too slow, but it is a 2-mana 2/2 without a downside, which we haven't gotten before. There was a Goblin. It's called Goblin Raider? No, it's not Goblin. Yeah, it is Goblin Raider. It's just a 2-mana 2/2 that can't block. So we've gotten that in the past, but we didn't get a straight up Grizzly Bear with no downside, and now we do, and it's kind of whatever. I'll give it a 2. That's what a Grizzly Bear gets. Next card is the Merchant of Many Hats from the Avatar The Last Airbender set. 1 and a black for a 2/2 human peasant ally. And you can pay 2 and a black to return this card from your graveyard to your hand. It's another grizzly bear, but this one is also a reassembling skeleton, kind of. Reassembling skeleton goes onto the battlefield. Reassembling skeleton is also a 1/1. Reassembling skeleton is also an uncommon. So this is a common, and it makes a little bit more sense that it costs you more mana to put it back and only into your hand. That's kind of the difference between a common or an uncommon. I think reassembling skeleton would probably be fine in the format, but a grizzly bear that can come back again and again, you're not going to be very happy about paying 5 mana to get a grizzly bear, right? Three to put it in your hand and 2 to put it back on the battlefield. But if you do have infinite mana somehow, I guess, and some kind of impact tremors effect, you can. And I guess a sack outlet. This is getting to be pretty big, isn't it? But you could make some kind of infinite combo with this of sacrificing it, paying the mana, bringing it back, playing the card, and sacrificing it. Blah 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 blah. You could do that. You probably won't. and even if you could, I bet there are better cards to do it than this. This is not even fine. Not even fine. I think it's like a 2.1. I give it the 0.1. It does have a little extra text over a grizzly bear, so I can't just give it a 2, but it's not really that much better than a grizzly bear. Chapel Geist is 1 and double white for a 2/3 flying spirit. Yep. We saw one of these on the last episode. We had a 2 mana 2/3 or a 3 mana 2/3 flyer in white, but it had a bunch of extra text on it, so it was just better. It was also 2 and a white and not 1 and double white, so it was easier to cast as well. This card ends up being bad then, just not just because it has a comparison to another card that completely outshines it, but it's also just not very good to begin with. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this thing I'm gonna give it a 1.8. Not an amazing card. Treefolk Umbras, 2 and a green for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets +0/+2 and assigns combat damage equal to the toughness rather than its power. And it also has Umbra Armor, which means if enchanted creature would be destroyed, instead you remove all damage from it and you destroy this aura instead. So you get to keep your creature. This could be okay. There's a walls deck in Pauper. It doesn't win with combat damage, so it doesn't need this. It is kind of just there to generate a bunch of mana and do crazy things. But I guess you could slap this on a big wall that was like a 0/5 or whatever and turn it into a 7/7 in a way, and that's not nothing. And the creature has totem armor, so it sticks around. There's something to it, maybe, but it's pretty expensive to put on the table in the first place. The totem armor almost doesn't matter when you just have a big creature anyway. If the creature has giant toughness, it's going to die to a destroy effect, I suppose, but it's not going to die to creature combat damage. It's not going to die to red direct damage at that point if you're putting it on a big dude. So, and then if your opponent does try to destroy the creature and this aura gets destroyed, well, then you've lost the ability, which means your attacking creature, which might have felt like a 7/7, now just becomes a 0/5 and does no damage. So I think it's giving your opponent actually a whole lot of advantage, and just kind of putting a big kick me sign on your creature. And you're like, that's the one you should kill. And I don't know. I don't think that's very good. I'm going to give this a 2.2. I'm not even sure it deserves that. The more I look at it, the more I don't like it. Clark Clan Stoker, not the right Clark Clan creature. to talk about for the Pauper format, but this one could be okay. It's 2 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Shaman, and you can tap it and sacrifice an artifact to add double red. I mean, it does add double red. You can potentially sacrifice clue tokens or blood tokens or something to it and generate a little bit of mana. 3 mana 2/2 feels a little expensive to me, and you're also going to be tapping the creature quite a bit to activate its ability, so the 2/2 doesn't really do anything. I almost would rather this be I certainly would rather this be a 1/2 and maybe find a way to make it a little cheaper. But as is, really cool art, not a great card. 2.4. Yeah, 2.4. I like it. I mean, it's Darksteel. I remember Darksteel quite well, but not a particularly great card. Dregscape Zombie is 1 and a black for a 2/1 zombie, and it also has Unearth for a single black. You can pay a black, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, and you exile it at the beginning of your next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield, and you unearth only as a sorcery. Not particularly good. It's a 2 mana 2/1. You're already feeling pretty bad about that. Yeah, it can come back, but it comes back for 1 turn, and I don't know. Later in the game, a 1 mana 2/1 with haste is not really going to do it. I guess if you set the stage right, if you open up your opponent to a decent amount of damage, if you kill some of their creatures and just leave the way open, and you want to punch in a little bit more, maybe, but I don't think this is particularly worth it. I wouldn't play this card. I'm going to go for I think we can go for a 2. You might argue it's a little bit better than a 2, being able to come back from the graveyard, something that you can mill. But I think I would come back with it's a 2/1 creature. It's not a big deal. It's a 2/1 creature with no other keywords, no evasion. It's not that useful. Splatter Thug. What a name. 2 and a red for a 2/2 human warrior with first strike and unleash. You may have this creature enter with a +1/+1 counter on it. It can't block as long as it has a +1/+1 counter on it. That is what unleash does. I'd kind of prefer riot, I guess, if we're talking about those kinds of abilities. A 3 mana 2/2 first striker is not great. First strike's a pretty good ability. I do like the unleash part, though. I like the math that it does into your head, or the strategy, the tactics that you have to think about when you are choosing unleash. Do I want this to be a 3/3 with first strike? Sounds really good, but now it can't block. And first strike is really good on a blocker. It really stops a lot of the opponent's creatures from attacking to begin with, because they just know they're going to die. If anything with 3 toughness or less is dead to this guy. Just instantly. They don't even get to trade with it. That can be a really scary thing. So losing the ability to block makes it so, hey, now the first strike only works when you're attacking, and that can be okay. I mean, that's still an okay ability, but it also makes the play balance more interesting. I've talked about it on the show before, but Gavin Verhey has talked on his Good Morning Magic channel about how first strike is being thought of in different ways by R&D right now. That knowing how scary it can be when somebody is defending with it. If they have a blocker with first strike, that slows down games quite a bit and really leads to these long, drawn out, unfun games of Magic that just feel like a stall fest. So if they're changing the language on cards, or changing the language for future cards. I mean, for new cards that they're making that are more about, hey, this thing has first strike when it's attacking, or hey, it has first strike but it can't block, and that's functionally the same thing. So I like this. I like this as a thought experiment. The card itself is kind of whatever. It's like a 2.7. Interesting story about it, though. Not that one specifically, but Phyrexian Ghoul. Hey, here's a classic card I like. Phyrexian Ghoul is 2 and a black for a 2/2 Phyrexian zombie, and you can sacrifice a creature, and this creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, originally from Urza Saga. Look at that art. So good. So good. It also is in the Battle Royal box set, which is not a big deal to you, but it's a big deal to me, which means because it has a white border, and I can put it in my white border cube. I love Phyrexian Ghoul. It's not very good in Pauper. We have cards that kind of just do this, but better. There's a vampire that does this that gets played in the mono black sack deck, and even then, I think something like Carrion Feeder is the card that you really want for those decks. You just can't play more than 4 Carrion Feeders, so you got to put another thing in there. And that other thing is probably going to end up being that vampire instead of Phyrexian Ghoul. It's just cheaper and it has a very similar ability. So this card has kind of fallen out of favor in the Pauper format, but it's still pretty solid. You know, you swing in and your opponent decides, well, maybe I won't block this, but they'll block a bunch of the other creatures. And you sacrifice all the other creatures and give it this thing +2/+2 each time. And your opponent feels like they have to block this guy now. So now you can sacrifice the creatures and make sure that this thing always lives or always has favorable combats. And that's cool. I like the stuff you can do with this. It's a free sacrifice outlet. That can be pretty useful. We just talked about a card that if you had infinite mana and a sack outlet and an impact tremors thing, you could make that work. But you could also make this thing infinitely big at that point too and do something with that, like a fling effect. There's stuff. It's cool. Phyrexian Ghoul, I love you. You're not really a Pauper staple these days, though. I will give you a 2.8. And I think this is our last official card of the day. It's a bridge. We've done the artifact bridges before. They're incredible. They're like 9s, maybe higher than 9s. They're some of the best cards in this format right now, with all the affinity going on, having an indestructible land, which allows for things like the Jund Wildfire decks to work out, or anything with the Cleansing Wildfire. You can use it on Silverbolt Bridge if you want, and ramping you. Like there's all sorts of cool things you can do with these bridges. They're really good cards, and it's also one of the reasons that Exile artifact cards are so wanted in the format, because you can't destroy these things. They're indestructible. Like I said, they're all like 9+. I'm not going to count this as one of our cards. We've done them before, but bridges are awesome. Grixis Illusionist. Grixis Illusionist is a single blue mana for a 1/1 human wizard. You can tap it, and target land you control becomes the basic land type of your choice until end of turn. We kind of have this on an artifact already. It's called Navigator's Compass. And Navigator's Compass is pretty good. Single mana for an artifact. When an energy gain 3 life, and then you can tap and it does the same kind of thing. Navigator's Compass is good because it's an artifact. It goes with all the affinity strategies like we just talked about with the bridges. It gains you 3 life. It's something that's easy. It's at a single mana. It's very easy to bounce it and play it again and gain even more life. It's an artifact, not a creature, so you can tap it the turn it comes down into play. You cannot do that with this guy. There's kind of all sorts of reasons that the Navigator's Compass is better than the Grixis Illusionist. However, the Grixis Illusionist is a creature. It can block. It could attack if you ever needed it to. It is a wizard and a human, which are good creature types. If you have a deck that is based around creature types, those are a couple good ones to build around. There's something there, but I think 9 times, maybe 9.5 times out of 10, you're going to want the Navigator's Compass instead. It just generally does a better job of this than the Illusionist does. Illusionist, I think you can go for a 2.4. And let's do a bonus card and go home. Attentive Sunscribe has really cool art. Love that art. 1 and a white for a 2/2 artifact creature gnome. When this creature becomes tapped, you scry 1. So it's a grizzly bear that taps and scries 1. I like that it's when it becomes tapped, not when it attacks. So you can do things like crew vehicles or I guess use the convoke, or isn't there one that we just what What's one that we just got? Was it from Marvel that you can tap things down? Team up. There you go. You can use the team up or teamwork attacks, whichever one, or not attacks, but the teamwork abilities, and you can tap down creatures for that. Saddling stuff. Like there's all sorts of ways that you can tap down creatures for extra value, and this guy gives you a scry when you do it. Now it is still just a grizzly bear that sometimes scries you one. That's not really good, but look at that art, right? Maybe the art just saves it. It gets a 2.2. I like the scry enough that I'll bump it up a couple points on that. Interesting. All right, that's all. We'll see you on the next episode. Till then.